Up+Adam.
Tractor systems are offline.
We are Beyond FM.
Beyond FM.
The future of broadcasting is here.
Up+Adam with Adam Montiel. It's community content from Concentrate. It's Up+Adam with Adam Montiel.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Yes, some say life is just where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
Happy Hump Day Wednesday. It's Up+Adam. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Adam Montiel. Thank you for connecting. Again, yes, it is Restaurant Month in San Luis Obispo. Visit slow.com/restaurant month to see the over 60 restaurants participating. Get involved, some great deals. Today is not a Restaurant Month episode. I can't do it too much, but I do want to let you know all month long, we are partnering up with the city of San Luis Obispo for Restaurant Month. Okay, today's episode. Wow. Today's a big day. 1 year ago today, LA changed forever. What began as a whiff of smoke, the Lockman Fire, became the Palisades, became then, over the hill in Altadena, Eaton, became the costliest wildfire in American history. Erasing neighborhoods, erasing memories, and any illusion that this was just one bad fire season. For Jacob Soboroff, this wasn't just a story to cover. This was his hometown, his childhood streets, his family history. As he stood on live television as a national correspondent reporting for NBC, while the place that made him was burning down. He realized something haunting. This wasn't the fire of the past. This was the fire of the future. So today, on the 1 year anniversary of the Palisades Fire, we're making the day with a really big get. Jacob Soboroff, New York Times best-selling author, an award-winning journalist who's you've seen on TV covering the most fragile places on earth, from Ukraine, Haiti, the border. Well, he's now the author of Firestorm. He joins us to talk about what he saw, what he missed, what comes next. From the smoldering embers of the Lockman Fire to the silence after the flames of the Palisades and the Eaton Fire, from political failures to moments of unexpected hope, Firestorm really is kind of a love letter to LA, also a warning to the rest of us. So stick around, because in a few minutes, we're going to have a really great conversation with Jacob Soboroff. Really looking forward to it. All right, couple lo-fi headlines. This one hits close to home. Speaking of nonprofits, and it's like, what fraud can Minnesota? You can't have all the fraud stories. We're California. We know our own share of fraud for sure. Listen to this story, and it's affecting some local nonprofits. A California-based fundraising platform called Flip Cause. They just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, but here is the gut punch. They owe about $29 million to nonprofits across the state, including 20 organizations right here in SLO and Santa Barbara counties. Flip Cause, they launched back in 2012, promising nonprofits an easy way to process donations, sell tickets to run online fundraisers. They charge those nonprofits between $1,500 and $2,400 a year just to be on the platform, plus nearly 7% of every donation and another 30 cents per transaction. That's real money, and it's donor money. Now, the thing is, with having a charge to be on the platform, getting charged a percentage of every donation, 7%, just under, and then 30 cents each transaction, all you have to do is just exist and you're making money. But according to multiple nonprofits, Flip Cause was supposed to just pass those donations along as they made money within 5 days. But about 2 years ago, payments started slowing. Then they slowed some more. And most recently, those payments just stopped altogether. One of the biggest local hits, 805 DocuFund, which Flip Cause owes more than $350,000. That's money meant for relief and community support for undocumented residents across SLO, Santa Barbara, even Ventura counties. Other groups saw the warning signs, limited their exposure, and still took some losses. By November, complaints piled up. On November 12th, the California Attorney General's office issued a cease and desist, citing failure to register, failure to remit donations, and failure to file required reports. A day earlier, a class action lawsuit landed. Then, late last year, December 19th, Flipcause officially filed for BK, listing more than 3,600 nonprofit creditors and over $30 million in liabilities. Where the absolute F did that money go? And just this week, the Attorney General moved to appoint a trustee, saying the company showed mismanagement, commingling of funds, dishonesty, self-dealing, and potential F word. You know it. Say it with me. F***ing fraud. I'm sorry, but this is when you're what you're seeing in Minnesota and what you're going to start to see here in California soon. And when you read an article like this that's affecting our own nonprofits, it is so anger-provoking. I apologize. Devastating consequences for charities that were just trying to do good work. So here's a list of some of the slow Santa Barbara County nonprofits impacted. 17 strong. That was the one for that Teixeira young man who died of cancer. They help young athletes who are terminal go to do things. I don't know. It's an incredible organization, 17 strong. I don't know it well enough to speak for them, but they're a really worthy organization. They've been affected. Boys and Girls Club of South San Luis Obispo County, Oceano, Central Coast Veterans helping veterans. We told you about 805 DocuFund. Let's see. Looking for some other slow ones. The History Center of San Luis Obispo County, Race Matters. It seems like they're just a bunch that, thought they could be trusted, thought that their money could be trusted, their donations and the goodwill of folks that donate to these organizations could be trusted. And it turns out, so we'll see how this one goes, but just incredibly anger-provoking, an article like that. Okay, one more lo-fi headline. We told you about Meathead Movers a few months back. San Luis Obispo-based company, they've agreed to pay up to $6 million to settle the federal lawsuit over alleged age and sex discrimination in its hiring practices. The announcement came from the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, better known as the EEOC. And here is how the settlement breaks down. Up to $2 million will go directly to people who say they were not hired because they were over 40 or because of their sex. Now, we told you earlier, there was no complainant in this lawsuit. So I don't know if that money is just going to sit in a jar until someone says, hey, me, I feel I wasn't hired. I'd love some of that money. I don't know. But so far, there had been no complainant up until, not even up until, I've still not heard of one. On top of that, Meathead Movers committed to spending up to $1 million a year for the next 4 years to hire people who applied, were qualified, but were allegedly passed over due to discrimination, which I still don't think they've admitted to. That includes laborers, movers, customer service reps, other roles. The EEOC says the company intentionally focused its recruiting on young college students and excluded older workers, regardless of whether they could actually do the job. According to the lawsuit, since at least 2017, applicants over 40 were not hired into moving, packing, and customer service positions. Meathead Movers co-founder Aaron Steed pushed back on these allegations vehemently, saying the company has always cared about one thing first. Can you do the job? He points out they've employed people over 40 since the early days, including a football coach who worked alongside much younger crew members. Still, a part of the agreement, Meathead Movers will now revise its policies to comply with federal law, review how it recruits and markets jobs, train staff, even run internal audits, and then report back to the EEOC. In short, the company is opening its books and its hiring practices. And here's the practical takeaway. If you believe you were denied a job at Meathead because of your age, meaning 40 or older, because of your sex, anytime from 2017 until now, there is a path to file a claim. You can contact the EEOC directly at 213-785-3088 or email meatheadlawsuit@eeoc.gov for instructions. So we've just because the holidays happened, we reached out to Aaron. He said he was more than down to come on the show. So looking forward to having him on, especially after this, because $6 million, that ain't chump change. That is a lot of money. So we'll see how this all shakes out. All right. Before we get into our chat with Jacob Soveroff, 1 year since the LA fires. Can you believe that today? Want to let you know and show some love to our friends at Mr. Putters and Andy's Awesome Arcade. Right in Atascadero. Who knew? We had an 18-hole mini golf course and a full-on classic arcade, pinball machines, all those old games you loved when you were a kid. Also, plenty of parking, a relaxed, family-friendly vibe. Mr. Putters and Andy's Awesome Arcade is run by genuinely great people who stepped up to even support our breaking and entering last year, which tells you a lot about who they are. Best part, arcade, it's one price. Unlimited play. Don't you love that? No feeding quarters, no burning cash like we did back in the day. They've got monthly tournament nights, gemstone mining for kids, party packages, and every Tuesday, $2 off putt-putt and arcade play from 2 to 8. Mr. Putters and Andy's Awesome Arcade right next door to each other in Atascadero. Good people, old school fun, and hey, no quarters required.
It's Up and Adam with Adam Montiel.
All right, he is a New York Times best-selling author, a senior correspondent for MSNBC, and one of the most respected journalists covering politics and disaster in America today. But when the fires came for his hometown, the Palisades, the streets he grew up on, well, this story stopped being just a national headline and became so much more personal. His new book, Firestorm, The Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster, is a searing, unflinching, and deeply human look at what really happened 1 year ago today and what it means for the rest of us. Welcoming Jacob Soveroff. Thank you, my man, for being Up and Adam.
It's so good to be here. Thank you so much. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so my goodness, let's get right to it. So you've reported on some of the most fragile places on earth, Haiti, Ukraine, the border. But when your phone buzzed that morning, a year ago today, and the Palisades are burning, that wasn't really just a story anymore. This was kind of your story. What did that feel like? Not really just as a journalist, but I mean, as Jacob, the kid who grew up in this neighborhood, to stand there with a mic while these streets of your memory are all ablaze.
Incomprehensible. And thank you for the question. It's such a good question. I couldn't wrap my head around in real time what it meant to get up and go watch my childhood neighborhood burn to the ground, much less my childhood home that I had grown up in. And to watch two neighborhoods virtually wiped off the map entirely. I could not process it in real time. It was impossible. Thoughts that came through my head: how did this happen? Will it happen again? What are the consequences of this happening? And that's why I set out to write Firestorm. And I think that what I realized, and I think people will realize when they read the book, is that what I experienced was not what I thought I was experiencing. A look back into my past at all the hallmarks of my youth, carbonizing in front of my eyes, incinerating. But really, it was the fire of the future. And so this is a book that, some reviews have said, and I think reads like a sci-fi thriller, but really it's a moment-by-moment accounting of what it's really like to live in America's new age of disaster. It is a lived reality, as true as a true story can be, about the types of threats that we face naturally and exacerbated by human error otherwise, and what we're all going to be dealing with in the years and decades to come.
You literally read my mind, because my next question is literally about the fire of the future, because that's haunting, because it means what we lived through, what you watched unravel, isn't just a tragedy, it's a preview, right? I mean, what is the moment?
That's what I felt too. Well, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, talk about that moment that you're reporting and you're like, wait a minute, are we even ready for what's coming?
That's what I felt too when the senior emergency management official in Washington, D.C., when I was there for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, basically said to me, what you experienced was not a look into your past, but a look forward. And I said, well, what is the fire of the future? He said, it was the fire of the future. I said, what's the fire of the future? And he said, give me your notebook. And I slid my notebook across the table, and he wrote on this page, changes in the way that we live. And he explained, electric car batteries were exploding during this fire. Our infrastructure is falling apart. And remember, we had that empty reservoir in the Palisades. And in Altadena, we had a steel lattice tower that was electrified that should have been taken down, according to some people, in advance of the fire. And then we have the politics of misinformation and disinformation, which made all of this worse for everybody, no matter your political party. The idea that you could have national politicians saying to you that there's a solution to this by turning on some mystical tap that will have water roaring down from the Pacific Northwest. And instead, what that ultimately did when President-elect Trump became the president was floods fields in the Central Valley. these are all parts of the disasters that we live in now. It isn't just confined to the spark. The spark is the obvious cause. How the spark was allowed to happen are the obvious questions. But what are the factors that make this as bad as it was? That's what I get into in the book.
You were on the ground when the fires hit, and so was someone else who, let's be honest, no one expected to be there for this fight, Spencer Pratt, a reality villain turned wildfire vigilante, screaming for accountability while feeding hummingbirds through the smoke kind of thing. What was it like watching someone like Spencer, once known for chaos, become a loud, raw, and an oddly compelling voice for justice? Did some see him on the ground as a distraction or kind of a unexpected ally?
I don't know Spencer, and we grew up, I guess, both in the Palisades, and I wasn't tracking him in real time during the fires, but I've been watching what he's been doing since, and I do it with understanding and admiration of somebody who wants to figure out what really went down, and caused him to lose his home and his livelihood and that of his wife. I think that it's understandable that people are angry, especially with local politicians who they feel like, or at least wonder, could they have stopped the blazes? And so all of the questions that people like Spencer are asking, or investigative journalists like Tony Briscoe in the Los Angeles Times, who was looking at the environmental cleanup and whether or not it's safe to go back and the level of testing that's being done by different governmental entities, or Hannah Dreier for the New York Times, who's done investigative reporting about the health concerns that firefighters will face in the wake of events like this. I'm not saying that they're all the same. I think Spencer is a unique voice and is certainly not a legacy journalist, but I think there's an asset in all of that to sort of stir the pot and get people thinking about what it is that we went through collectively, because that's the thing. I do think that there's a tendency to divide in the wake of events like this, but we all went through it together. And I do think that there's a way to find a shared humanity in all of this. And that's what I believe about anybody, whether it's him or someone else talking about how this has all gone.
No, I want to talk about
let me just say, I feel horrible for him, just as I did for Katie Miller, Stephen Miller's wife, who called me and asked me to go check out their house in the Palisades, even though that we were sort of journalist source adversaries sometimes in my coverage of immigration policy for the administration. These things are equalizers, and they take down the walls between us. Sometimes they're quick to go back up, but it's a reminder that at the end of the day, we're all human beings. And this book is about people as much as it is about politics or about the climate.
That's a great point. I want to talk about Daddy Newsom for a second. No matter where one sits politically, one can objectively look at whether it's $23 billion spent on homelessness that's gone, can't find it, high-speed rail, there's no train, there's no tracks, the way he left San Francisco. Do you think Gavin Newsom's mismanagement, whether it's Forest, the fires, the Lockman fire, do you think this is going to stick to him, or might he be too greasy, too smart to even have this stick as he wants to run for president?
Like I said, I think people look at politicians and look for reasons to blame anybody about a travesty that they went through. And again, I'm not absolving anybody. He told me after the fires that he was going to have a Marshall Plan 2.0 to rebuild LA. I haven't seen an official Marshall Plan 2.0 proposal come out. Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, was out of the country in Ghana. And, did she know? What did she know? Why did she go? Why didn't she come back sooner? All these questions should be answered, and they will be over time by investigative journalists. This is, for me, a first draft. TV News was my first draft. The book, Firestorm, the second draft of continuing to go deeper on all of this. I think the voters will judge whether or not they think Gavin Newsom did a good job or not. He, made the case to me that those are qualities in the wake of the fire that are befitting of a potential commander-in-chief as he thinks about running for the presidency of the United States. Do I think that the voters are going to look at it that way? I don't. But that's his case to make, not mine.
Yeah, great point. Let's talk about fire aid for a second. $100 million. Looks like folks who had their houses burned in the Palisades have seen none of it. Instead, it went to nonprofits. It went to salaries. It went to all kinds of other things. Then it was designed to. People donated their hard-earned money to go to those people who lost their houses. What have you learned about fire aid in the last year?
It's not a focus of my book. I haven't been investigating fire aid, but I know that other people are interested in what happened with that money, obviously. And just like investigative reporting around the causes of the fire, just like investigative reporting around should there have been more firefighters pre-positioned in the Palisades, how did the fire hydrants run dry? How did in Altadena, which you didn't mention there, on the other side of LA County, which was actually equally destructive, if not more gruesome, did the electrical equipment become so faulty and result in the spark that killed people? Where was the emergency alert system that was reportedly late to trigger, which caused deaths in West Altadena, allegedly? All these things over time are going to be investigated by investigative journalists. The reality is that's not what this book is. This book is a personal reflection on what it was like to be there. But I hear the concerns of people who want to know and have a full accounting from this charity or others about where the money ultimately goes. And I am certain that given the level of interest in this, it'll be further excavated.
There is a haunting section in Firestorm where you describe the silence after the flames, the absence of birdsong, the ghost hum of what used to be neighborhoods. I'm curious, if LA had a soundtrack in the days after the fire, what would it have sounded like? Talk about your five senses in those moments after, and even more, how did those moments feel to you?
I'm so glad that you asked that question, because the first sounds and signs of life that I heard at all in the Palisades after I came back on, I think it was morning 3 of the fire, was the sounds of the feral free-flying parrots that fly all over Los Angeles County. And it was the first thing that gave me hope after days of splitting headache, of stress, of barely eating, of not being able to do anything other than sort of grieve. And when I did ultimately, for the first time, hear these birds, it lifted me up and it gave me hope. And so you said that in the absence of birdsong, but that was one of the first things that came back. And I actually encourage people to read that chapter of the book. It was one of my favorite to write because I got to go to Occidental College to the Free Flying Parrot Project and actually dive deep and understand these birds' weird connection to the history of fire in LA. And a lot of them were released from topiaries during the Bel Air fire in the 1960s.
Wow.
One of our big previous fires in LA. And that's what made them these wild feral parrots. Hope often emerges in the depths of depravity and destruction, and that was sort of the first step for me.
Okay, finally, every journalist has a fingerprint, right? A rhythm, something that makes you go, yep, that's a sober off piece right there. What's your signature when you tell a story, and how did Firestorm, Jacob, challenge or maybe even deepen that storytelling voice?
I'm not going to take credit for my style. People in all throughout California know who Huell Hauser is, the legendary public television icon. He's my idol, was my idol, and I studied him. And everything Huell ever did, treat people with respect and dignity, no matter who they are, where they come from, spend time places, walk slowly and deliberately, listen to people, and treat them with love. That's what Huell always did, and he's my idol for that very reason. And everything I do tries to emulate Huell. He is like a sponge that would soak up the facts on the ground and turn around and just let his audience experience them. I'm no expert in anything. I'm just a guy who is lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to meet people for a living. I feel blessed to do it, and I try to just share that in the most authentic way that I can. That's my style, and it's derivative of the great legend Huell Hauser.
How do you feel today? It's the really big anniversary. How are you going to move through today? What are you doing after this? How are you going to spend the rest of your day?
I'm talking to a lot of folks like you to share this story, and it feels good to me to be able to go back and dip into the well of love that emerged in the wake of all of this, to deal with some really painful stuff. Grief is a tough thing. And anybody who has dealt with grief, whether it's a death in the family or a relationship ending or a disaster that destroyed something near and dear to you, knows what it's like. It's a nonlinear up and down process. And so this day is a chapter in that for me, just like this book is many chapters in that story. And I think people will learn that when they pick up Firestorm.
Well, at your fingertips right now, the sights, the smells, the sounds of this time 1 year ago through this book of yours called Firestorm. We got links in the show notes. I can't thank you enough for the time, Jacob. Thank you for the hard work and appreciate you being Up and Adam.
I appreciate you, Adam. Thanks a lot.
Some say life's where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again.
All right, if you want to go deeper, the book is called Firestorm, The Great Los Angeles Fires in America's New Age of Disaster. It's available now wherever books are sold. You can find the link in the show notes as well as Jacob's social links on Insta and on X. Well, the weather seems to be turning around a bit after a wind advisory. Look for temps on the rise, at least a little bit. I mean, temps that have been like in the upper 50s are going to get into about the mid 60s in the next few days. Pretty sunny skies, some clouds and sun, but otherwise mild temps and some sunshine. You might even see temps hit 70 in about a week. All right, appreciate you joining us so much here each day on Up and Adam. Thanks to our friends Moonshiner Collective for being a part of the show. Their song Start Again, original music on the show. Stream them wherever you get your music. Also find them at moonshinercollective.com. Our thanks to Josh and Chiasa Clapper, Timbre Winery, Timbre. Check them out. They're in the village of Arroyo Grande. That's where you taste their world-class wines. And I just appreciate them more than ever for giving us our Timbre Lowbro Studios. More than anything, I appreciate you for connecting here. Also, if you can, to rate, review, subscribe to the show wherever you listen to it. If you're on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, even writing a review, taking 30 seconds to do that. I tell you, it really means a ton, especially as we've been getting a lot of good traction late last year and into this year. So that would just even help even more. So appreciate you a ton. Thank you so much. Till tomorrow, I am Adam Montiel, and I appreciate you for being Up and Adam.
Some say life is where it begins. Straight to the stars is where it ends. Only to start again. Let's start again. We'll start again. Let's start again.
Slow Restaurant Month is here this January. Let's show some love to our local eateries during their slow season. Restaurants across San Luis Obispo are stepping up with delicious menus and amazing deals. Don't miss your chance to taste the best of slow. Head to visitslow.com/restaurant month today.